Eleanor's cruel laughter echoed loudly across the expansive stone porch. Julian ruthlessly tossed a heavy cardboard box onto the concrete. Clara stared silently at her shattered wedding picture frames. A single warm tear betrayed her perfectly calm facial facade. "Cry all you want, you own absolutely nothing here." Julian confidently wrapped his arm around a tall blonde woman. He violently kicked Clara's suitcase closer to the iron gate. Clara slowly and deliberately wiped the tear from her cheek. She looked up at the sprawling estate one last time. "Sign the papers before my new fiancé moves in." The luxury car engine roared to life in the darkness. Clara's trembling hands finally steadied on the leather steering wheel. She pulled a pristine black card from her coat pocket. She dialed a private number she hadn't called in years. "Mr. Vance? Execute the immediate eviction protocol now." Arthur Vance adjusted his silver glasses in the morning sunlight. He firmly stamped a thick stack of official legal documents. Clara sat across from him wearing a sharp designer suit. The helpless tears from last night were completely erased today. "They have no idea the estate belongs to you." Julian happily clinked his champagne glass with his proud mother. The new fiancé admired the incredibly expensive crystal chandelier above. A sudden, aggressive pounding erupted against the heavy front door. Eleanor rolled her eyes in absolute annoyance at the noise. Did that stray dog come back to beg again? A team of men in dark suits stood in formation. Mr. Vance stood at the very front, holding a briefcase. Julian opened the door with a deeply irritated facial expression. The champagne glass slipped directly from his suddenly shaking hand. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Mr. Vance calmly opened his black leather briefcase. He handed a thick stack of papers to Julian. Eleanor stomped forward and aggressively slapped the documents away. The eviction notices scattered all over the marble floor. "You are trespassing on my son's property." Julian aggressively shoved Mr. Vance toward the iron gates. The security guards stepped forward in a defensive stance. Vance simply adjusted his tie with perfect professional calm. He pulled out a secondary legal document from his pocket. "You have exactly 24 hours to vacate." Julian slammed his fist onto the marble teller counter. The frightened bank teller nervously clicked her computer mouse. Julian demanded to completely freeze Clara's joint savings account. The screen violently flashed a massive red error message. "Just freeze the damn account right now." The sweating bank manager frantically wiped his forehead. He turned the monitor to face an enraged Julian. The account balance showed absolute zero across all boards. Secondary message revealed a frozen corporate hold status. "Sir, the primary account holder locked it." Eleanor tossed 3 designer handbags onto the glass counter. She smugly handed the cashier her platinum credit card. The machine loudly beeped with a harsh declined notification. The cashier awkwardly handed the useless plastic card back. "Ma'am, your card was completely shut down." Clara sat at the head of a massive mahogany table. 6 senior executives watched her with utmost absolute respect. She coldly watched Julian's bank meltdown on security footage. She deliberately pressed a single red button on her laptop. Lock down his corporate investment portfolio next. Julian angrily swiped his ID card at the security turnstile. The digital scanner aggressively flashed a harsh red light. 2 large security guards immediately stepped forward, blocking his path. Julian pointed a shaking finger at the glass doors. "I am the vice president of this company." The head guard crossed his muscular arms tightly. He stared down at Julian with pure, absolute disgust. Printed memo sat visibly on the front desk. Julian's photo was crossed out with thick red ink. "Your employment was terminated 10 minutes ago." Eleanor eagerly approached her regular high society lunch table. 3 wealthy women immediately turned their backs to her. A waiter quickly removed Eleanor's favorite velvet chair. Eleanor's face flushed bright red in total public humiliation. "Why is everyone treating me like absolute garbage?" Julian violently kicked open the heavy oak door. Mr. Vance didn't even look up from his paperwork. Julian slammed his deactivated company badge onto the desk. He demanded the name of the mystery estate owner. "Who bought my house and ruined my life?" Clara watched Julian's meltdown through Vance's glass window. She gently tapped her manicured fingers on the steering wheel. Her phone buzzed loudly with a call from Vance. She stared at the divorce papers on her passenger seat. "Do we proceed with total financial liquidation, Clara?" Julian frantically typed the holding company name into his laptop. The screen loaded the official corporate registry documents. His bloodshot eyes widened in absolute sheer terror. The founder's signature perfectly matched his ex-wife's handwriting. "No, this is completely impossible. It's Clara." Movers brutally stripped the expensive paintings off the walls. Julian sat on the bare floor, clutching his phone. He frantically dialed Clara's number over and over again. Only a cold, automated voicemail answered his desperate calls. "Clara, please. I have absolutely nothing left." Clara sobbed violently beside a heavily beeping life support machine. Her frail mother squeezed Clara's trembling hand very weakly. Julian stood in the doorway, checking his expensive watch. He rolled his eyes at the devastating emotional display. "I am not paying for another useless surgery." Clara knelt on the cheap rug, begging her husband. Julian packed a luxury suitcase for a romantic getaway. A blonde woman waited outside in a sports car. He kicked Clara's desperate hands away from his shoes. "She will die tonight without that medical payment." A doctor slowly pulled a white sheet over the bed. Clara collapsed against the cold, sterile hospital wall. An older billionaire investor handed her a business card. Clara's tears stopped as pure, absolute rage took over. "I will build this company and destroy him." Clara tightly gripped her deceased mother's silver locket. The horrifying memories finally faded into the dark night. She looked at the flashing invitation for tonight's gala. Julian was scheduled to speak at this exact event. It is time to finish this pathetic game. Flashing cameras blinded the wealthy guests on the red carpet. Julian nervously adjusted his wrinkled suit at the entrance. He desperately needed the investors inside to save him. A sleek black limousine pulled up right behind him. "I just need one person to trust me." The crowd gasped loudly as the limousine door opened. Clara stepped out wearing a breathtaking diamond necklace. Julian dropped his presentation folder right into a puddle. The security guards immediately parted the crowd for her. "Clara? How did you get in here?" Julian stood on the main stage, gripping the microphone. He begged the wealthy audience for emergency startup funding. The giant projector screen behind him suddenly flashed red. Clara's face appeared as the majority shareholder of everything. He was married to the company founder? Clara confidently walked up the grand velvet stairs. She snatched the microphone directly from Julian's shaking hands. The entire room fell into an absolutely dead silence. Julian fell to his knees in front of everyone. "Security, remove this trespasser from my charity event." Eleanor rushed through the doors, screaming her son's name. Two massive guards instantly grabbed her expensive silk dress. The rich women from the restaurant openly laughed at her. Eleanor covered her face in absolute sheer public disgrace. "Don't touch me. Do you know who I am?" The blonde fiancé furiously threw her engagement ring. The diamond violently bounced off Julian's sweating forehead. She aggressively grabbed her luxury coat from the rack. Julian desperately crawled toward her expensive designer heels. "Fiancé, I don't date homeless, pathetic, broke losers." Security violently tossed Julian onto the hard concrete sidewalk. Rain immediately began pouring down on his ruined suit. Clara stood perfectly dry under a massive black umbrella. She looked down at him with zero remaining emotion. "Now you know exactly how the snow felt." Julian dragged his soaked, freezing body into a dark alleyway. He desperately dug through his empty pockets for $1. Only a crumpled, unsigned divorce paper fell onto the dirt. He curled into a tight ball against a rusty dumpster. "I lost absolutely everything for nothing." Morning sunlight flooded into a breathtaking, massive glass penthouse. Clara placed her mother's silver locket gently on the mantel. A handsome man in a tailored suit handed her coffee. She leaned into his warm shoulder with a peaceful smile. "She would have loved this beautiful view, David." Julian stood shivering at the back of a charity line. line. His expensive luxury watch had been traded for a coat. Eleanor complained loudly behind him about the terrible smell. He stared blankly at a massive digital billboard across town. How did we end up eating garbage? The glowing billboard displayed Clara's triumphant, smiling face. Bold letters announced her company's billion-dollar global expansion. Julian dropped his plastic bowl of thin, watery soup. He finally realized the true magnitude of his massive mistake. That empire was supposed to be mine. Clara confidently signed a massive stack of new global contracts. Mr. Vance proudly poured 2 glasses of expensive vintage champagne. She looked out the window at the bustling city below. She had completely erased the people who betrayed her. You built a beautiful empire from your tears. Clara's shiny black limousine pulled up to a crumbling orphanage. A little boy sat alone on the broken concrete steps. He tightly held a torn photograph of Clara. Those who laugh at tears will eventually drown in their own. Are you really here to save me?